Shalom everyone, my name is Nakariah, and we're giving all praise to the Most High for creating this day and allowing us to be here. Chances are if you clicked on this video, you're struggling, I'm struggling, you know someone who is struggling, and hopefully what this lecture will do is provide you with a certain anecdote and sort of instruction manual that will help you in the times of tribulation that we all tend to go through, especially on the spiritual journey. So, I'm going to make this as concise as possible. I also have a little treat planned for all of the viewers today, as you guys will finally see a little bit more of my magnificent editing skills, which are effectively non-existent, but we will hopefully enjoy. So stated as in last lecture, negative stress is the enemy of peace, and so what that tends to mean is struggle is the sister of stress, because the struggle is usually where stress comes from. Some sort of friction, some sort of conflict, some sort of struggle. And that is okay, right? Because there is hardly anything truly worth seeking after in life that doesn't require some sort of hell. So hell is sort of necessary for you to go through if you're going to get something that is truly worthwhile, right? Or else you're going to end up in hell because you don't pursue the things that are worth value, right? So the struggle is good. If you are struggling, especially spiritually, the chances are you're doing something that is actually worthwhile. So that might be good enough to suffice for those of you who are listening. But if not, let us continue here. So concerning the combat for negative stress associated with the struggle, I've come to learn that peace and humility, and honestly I found some utility in humor as well, but peace and humility tend to be the key factors in combating the negative stress associated with negative stress associated with the struggle. And so I have a 3-step process as to what to do with your mindset, how to shift it in a way to where you can sort of view your struggle as something that is palatable and digestible. So step number 1, you realize that whatever your struggle may be, it is indeed a test sent from the divine. That's usually a good way of looking at it. And then number 2 is, I must perform with all the wisdom I can muster. And 3, that the Most High may be glorified and pleased by me. And so this was something that I developed through my due diligence in studying the wisdom literature. And as a psychologist, I find that whenever I'm doing any sort of basic analysis of persons that I meet, I'm very aware that people typically have 3 states of being, which is 1 is how they present themselves in public, 2 is how they present themselves with family and friends, and lastly is how they are with themselves. The last one you can arguably state is how they are with the Most High, which is an interesting way of looking at it, but for the sake of simplicity we'll say how they are with themselves and how they treat themselves. Now what you tend to realize is usually people present their best selves in public, and this usually is the case because people like to put on airs or facades to seem like they're more formal, or that they're in other terms just better than what they actually are, right? And so, which isn't a bad thing, right? Because this is the reason why we have this is the reason why we have bureaucracy and things of that nature, and why we have civilizations and societies, etc. But what I've learned is you might actually be able to use that to your advantage. You know, I also use this particularly when I was learning how to speak effectively. It's like, okay, well, if I don't have anyone to practice with, well, then I'll just practice with myself. I'll just pretend, I'll factor in the other persons that are involved in the conversation. Because you tend to feel the need to perform when others are watching, because you don't tend to want to slip up or seem like the fool or seem inadequate when you're in a social setting. So how you compensate for that is by actually being adequate and competent in a social setting. That being said, if you really grasp a hold of rule number 2 in the 3-step diagram that I've cultivated here, it's I must perform with all the wisdom I can muster, right? And we know that we're doing this for the sight of the divine. So it's like, once you're getting in the hang of, okay, you know what, the Most High is watching me, I want to impress him, which is effectively impossible, but we're his children, so what can we do? Trying to please him by performing with all the wisdom that he has taught you thus far. It is a very beautiful thing for a father to see in a child, and even much so for the divine to the physical. And 3, probably the most important, is that the Most High may be glorified and be pleased, because now you're factoring in humility into the means of which you tackle problems, you know, because now it's like, well, yes, I did this and yes, I did that, but it was only through the grace and, and power and benevolence of the Most High. And I did this so he can be glorified, because I am his child and he is my parent, which means that the way that I act reflects him, and I don't want to misrepresent him, right? So that's a good way of looking at it as well. The 3-step diagram. Now I'm going to read one chapter. I'm going to read just a bit of scripture, just a bit. It's not much at all. We're going to turn to the book of James, chapter 1, and verse 2. If I can find it, you guys might be able to find it before I do, because James tends to always slip my fancy here. There it is. Beautiful. James chapter 1 and verse 2 says, "My brethren, count it all joy when ye fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing." I was going to stop there. I'll read one more verse, though, because verse 5 is beautiful. It says, "If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of the Most High, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him." Now, I actually had a study session with my wife on Shabbat. We were talking about basically the doctrine of counting it all joy in regards of tribulations. And what I wanted to focus on was, why exactly does the biblical mythology support that philosophy? It's like, okay, yes, you know, when you're going through trials and tribulation, count it all joy, pray and praise, etc. But it's like, why do we praise during trials and tribulation? Here's my personal reasons as to why. Maybe this will be helpful for any of the listeners. In the legendary history of Job, we get our first glimpse of observing how Shaitan, or Satan, thinks. Right? So we see Satan say, okay, well, Job and many other persons who fit that archetypal structure, they will praise and worship, etc., the divine due to the benevolent situation that they've come to be in. And then that makes sense, both to Satan and to humans. And so then what Satan proposes, and this tends to be usually correct, is, okay, if I take away all of the benevolence associated with this person's life that's been blessed, that's been a blessing upon him from the divine, then surely all of the praise, honor, glory, and worship that he gives to the Most High, that person will turn it into a curse and throw it in the Most High's face. Now, this is typically true, right? And Satan knows this. And so he gives that proposition to the Most High regarding Job. The Most High accepts at the caveat of him not taking Job's life, which is very important. I'm not going to get into it right now, though. And so what Satan ends up doing sort of works, but doesn't. Job definitely doesn't curse the Most High, but what he does do is question. But what we see here, though, is, because there's a scripture in Psalms, and essentially it's a question that David asks, which to himself, it's like, okay, well, if the Most High has delivered my soul from death multiple times, will he not essentially make sure that I'm okay with the how would you say, the lesser burdens of my struggles? And the answer is yes, and that's a good answer to wrap your head around. But the thing is, we don't tend to think like that all the time. Now, the thing about praise in the midst of your tribulation is it's very confusing to the enemy. Because if Satan sees, like, okay, I've taken this, I'm taking this, I'm taking this, why are you still praising? Why are you still praying? Why are you still worshiping? It's very, very confusing. And this is the wisdom in how Christ broke down how if you reject Satan enough, he will eventually flee from you. Because our adversary, he's very intelligent. And he will start to realize, like, okay, well, I'm doing all this work, and you're not budging. By the time I've broken you, I could have gotten 10 other people. And so he'll leave, right? So that is the reason as to why we praise and worship in the times of our suffering, because it's confusing to the enemy, and it's exercising our faith. And faith tends to coincide with loyalty. And one thing about loyalty, and I learned this from my mother, is it's so tricky, because sometimes you can be loyal, but you don't necessarily even know why, or you don't even have hope as to why you should be loyal. But I found that being loyal is one of the strongest things anyone could ever do. Because it's essentially you saying, especially if it's not towards the divine and towards other people, which is definitely the case for my mother, it's like, I am going to stick with you, and I'm going to display long suffering and patience in the times of which you give me hell, and I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to love you all the more for it. That's essentially what loyalty is, and that's a very, very tough decision to make. It's why there's not a lot of loyal people in the world, right? And so, kudos to my mother as well. Her name is Namawaya. Her name actually means the Most High's loyal one. So that seems to be a good segue into this lesson, because when you're exercising your faith, it turns into faithfulness, because you're exercising the faithfulness or your loyalty committed to the Most High in the times of those tribulations. So that was a quick little hiatus. So that was the scripture that I wanted to present. Okay, so now we're going to insert the treat here. What I'm going to show you is a clip, well, 2 clips, but a clip from my favorite film of all time. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it is the most wholesome, most gem-written, wisdom-stroked film I've ever witnessed in my entire 21 years of living. I recommend it to everyone watching, every person that I come across in the street. Everyone should watch this film at least once in their life. It's only 35 minutes long. This clip is going to include something that I believe we all need to subscribe to if we're going to get through the struggle, as we call it, in a positive manner. So, without further ado, I've edited this little treat for you. And yeah, please enjoy.
If I wasn't caught in this snare, I'd kill you.
If you stay in that snare, you'll die.
You did so well.
One of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things.
One of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things. Isn't there so much strength and wisdom that is so rich and potent within that one sentence? And that tends to be the thing about wisdom. It's like, you don't have to say a lot to say something wise. You can just say very little, and it means so many things and covers so many aspects on the spectrum. We need to wrap our heads around that, because oftentimes we can be offensive to the Most High when we complain and we bicker and we murmur about our situations, when the truth is, we don't really know what our situations mean. When Job, as mentioned earlier, displayed his ignorance and decided to question the Most High through his emotional climax, the Most High said something so ambiguously just insane. He said, what did he say? He said something along the lines of, Job, do you have access to the keys of darkness that close the gates of death? It's like, well, absolutely not, right? It's like, us as humans can't even conceptualize the idea of death having real estate, let alone gates and keys and sort of access to death. It's like, no, who thinks of that? It's like, no. And the Most High knows that. And the beauty in that is, in my favorite chapter in the whole biblical anthology, Isaiah 45, the Most High says to Cyrus, I have called thee by thy name, I have surnamed thee, though thou hast not known me. I am the Most High, and there is none else. So, this is something that you can skip over and miss, but I think there's beauty in it, because a lot of times, all the time, the Most High, as his son stated, is always working. And so what that means is, he's always doing something that's totally unbeknownst to us. And so, the thing about that is, it's always to the benefit of someone. Now, you can think, okay, of course, if he's tackling the imbalances within the earth and how that measures along the breadth of the universe, then of course that has universal benefit to all humans. But then it's like, okay, well, what does he do that's so individualistic, that varies from person to person, that helps each person differently on their own personal ventures? It's like he's doing something that's going along the lines of your benefit, and you don't know what it is. You don't know what it is at all. But what you are doing is probably prohibiting the benefits coming your way in a more quickened fashion, because you're bitter and you're disobedient, and you're ignorantly questioning why the Most High is doing what he's doing when you don't even know what he's doing. So, in that, let's not allow our ignorance to question the Most High. Let's allow our ignorance to serve as a blockade from questioning his divinity. And let's realize that one of our greatest freedoms is how we react to things. Such a beautiful statement. And there's one thing that I want to close off with regarding the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. My favorite character in the film is the horse, as he seems to display the most wise and rich character. And then the mole. Absolutely love the mole. You know, the boy asks the horse a very interesting question, a very childlike but very profound question. He asks the horse, "What's the bravest thing you've ever said?" And the horse says, "Help." He elucidates this point by saying, help is not giving up. Asking for help is refusing to give up. The film is so profound. Everyone, please give it a watch. It's on Prime. You have to get a free trial to watch it on Apple TV. I watched it with my whole family. We all rated it a 10 out of 10. So, listen to the horse and listen to the mole. The mole is saying, you control how you react to things, which means that you control the integrity in which you operate. And the horse says the bravest thing that you can do is ask for help, because asking for help is refusing to give up. And so what might you do, all those under the sound of my voice? You might ask the Most High genuinely for help and realize that it's the bravest thing that you can do. And maybe you'll do this now, after you turn off this video, and leave a like button, and hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification button. And if you need help from me, leave a comment, leave a suggestion for a video. You know, I'm always here, and hopefully I can, curate a lecture that will be to the benefit of perhaps even just one person, because that's what I'm here for. And that's going to be all for this video. I really enjoyed this video. I hope you guys will enjoy this video as well. I hope that you guys, as usual, stay safe, especially with the fires going on right now. Wear some masks if you're in Southern California, of course. Stay safe, stay dangerous, and as always, be wise. Shalom.